measured between the rear foot strikes of the left and right side footprints. So, you got a left foot and you got a right foot. That distance between their heels, if that makes sense, that's the straddle. Now in tracking, like for instance wolves or grizzly bears, quadrupeds, straddle is always outside of the heel or the foot to the outside. And that can help actually determine the size of the animal. But with wolves, bears, mountain lions, we have a lot of data on all of those animals. So we know more or less how big they should be. With the Sasquatch, we don't. But the more data that's collected from the more trackways that are found, maybe there's someone smart enough out there that could put something together. But they need actionable data to do that. Angle of gait or foot angle. That's the absolute angle between the angular orientation of the track with respect to the line of progression or direction of travel as a fixed line of reference. So if he's moving this way, that angle is the difference between here and the direction he's moving. That's his angle of gait. That can be measured with a protractor. Same kind you would use for land navigation, if any of you guys have ever done that. You can measure that angle so it's, 60 degrees. That's how far off his foot is canted, deviating from his line of progression. That's important data. Here, this is hard to, I've never done a PowerPoint, so I didn't know how big this stuff was going to be on the screen. Here I demonstrate what I was talking about before. Line A would represent the step, left, right. So from the back of the heel of the left foot to the back of the heel of the right foot. That's a step. B is his stride. The bottom of the heel of the left foot to the bottom of the heel of the next left foot. That's a stride. C is his straddle. So between that heel of the left foot and then the right foot, that angle or that measurement there is going to be his straddle. Here, D represents the direction of travel. Say that's due north. Where this foot deviates from that line of progression, that angle is his angle of gait. Here I get a little bit more, again this is hard to see. The way you measure that, the angle of gait, is you would draw an imaginary line from that line of progression through the calcaneus or the heel, through to the intersecting we're inferring where the second metatarsal would be, or the second toe. Through there, this angle is the angle of gait. And again, if you find a trackway, because if it's a singular track, you're not going to know. If it's a trackway, you can make these determinations, and that's data that you should collect. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, this is a brief overview, so I'm moving to DNA collection from scat. Scat can be a very, very important indicator of the presence of a species in a particular area. Again, if a wolf biologist can use scat, sample the DNA, and identify a wolf that they have in their database that maybe they haven't seen for 2 years. They've just verified that wolf is there. They found fresh scat, that wolf's still alive and kicking and he's still here, they just haven't seen him. The same techniques used for that can be used for Sasquatch research if you have reason to believe that a particular pile of excrement belongs to the donor as a Sasquatch. I'm going to start with a note on selecting scat specimens. The fresher the scat, the more viable the DNA in or on that scat is going to be. If you find dry, desiccant scat, it's going to be worthless as far as DNA. Go ahead. I talked, and again this is hard to see, a little list of some of the materials you might need to sample DNA from scat in the field. PPE, protective equipment, emergency equipment, gloves, Some people recommend a face mask and small garbage bags. And again, this material, this isn't something I made up. This is from a group at a university in Canada that does this because they study wolves, they study moose, they study bear. Data collection materials, your field book, something all-weather. Obviously, you don't want it falling apart on you when you're in the woods. Archival paper, 3x5 cards. They also make all-weather 3x5 cards. Pens, all-weather. Pencils, mechanical pencils. DSLR camera. Magnifying glass or a jeweler's lens. GPS to mark where your find was. Your sampling materials. Applicator swabs that are sterile. And I'll demonstrate this. I have some of the materials over here. I have on here, for instance, a 2 milliliter specimen collection vial, which is also sterile, and you can buy them that way. Pipettes that are sterile, and I'll show you what a pipette is. And something that your average, I guess, amateur Sasquatch researcher would be able to get his hands on, but the most powerful type of alcohol would be 190 proof Everclear. Stronger the alcohol, the better you'll be able to preserve your sample. Now there are alcohols that are stronger, and there are other liquids that are better for preserving DNA, but they're not accessible to us. If you work in a laboratory at a university, you'd be able to get your hands on it. If it's you or me, then you probably won't. In Georgia, you can buy Everclear. I think in some states it's illegal. I'm not real sure on that, but okay. Next slide, please. I've got here an example of minimum data to collect. The minimum amount of data that you would want accompanying your find, whatever it is. On here I have you can make a label or a card, or write this in your field book where you get down the country, you know, United States, Canada, the state or province, the city or town that it's nearest by, the site name, if you have a particular research area and you've given it a designation, specimen ID, if one can be made. Obviously, you know, don't put Sasquatch because you don't know, right? No. Method of collection. How did you collect it? The biologists use bait traps. And if a bear goes to a bait trap and gets his fill, usually he'll take a dump nearby and they can collect. So you'd want to mention, how did you collect this? Was it opportunistic? Did you come up on it accidentally? Or did you use a method like bait traps or what have you? That's important to document. The GPS coordinates, as precise as you can get. I use UTM, it's Universal Transverse Mercator. It's more accurate for small geographic locations, but you know, as long as you've got a specific, something that someone else could plug into their GPS and find. That's the idea. Information like the elevation, collected by, who was it collected by, the date, the time, if you want to give it a unique collection number so you can keep track of it and not get it mixed up with other specimens that you have. You would want to do that. Additional or optimum data to accompany your find would be photographic evidence using a scale, something that's universal, not your foot. Mm-hmm. Everybody in here has a different sized foot. That's not a scale. I don't know how big that is. So rulers, measuring tape, something like that. Something in millimeters, centimeters and millimeters is more accurate than using inches and feet. And that's the language the scientific community speaks. They use the metric system. So I think that would be something good. If you're going to talk to someone, speak their language. Give them data that they're going to understand. Then I have photograph the evidence in situ or where it was found. Before you do anything to it, photograph it. Document it that way. That's one form of documentation, but should never be the only way you document something. Snap a couple pictures and get it on your Facebook and now you're a squatcher. That ain't research. I'm sorry, it's not. You're a trophy, it's monster hunting. It might be good for some people. Other people are going to tell you, I don't know what the hell this is, it's nothing. Document, write stuff down. In addition, continuing optimum data, habitat type. Description, where was it? Is it forested? Is it grassland? A farmer's field? A riparian zone? Trees along a river, that's a riparian area. Animals in particular habitats often gather in those places. They feed there. Where you have different habitat types intersecting, that's where you have the most wildlife. Sasquatch lives out there with deer and elk and moose and bear. I think it's reasonable to assume that he would follow the same behavioral patterns that they would. I don't think he's an exception to the rule. He lives out there like they do, so why wouldn't he do the same things? He's affected by the same sun, the same rain, the same lightning storm.